Really, the Igbos like to go out and do big things and not do it in the Southeast. They will tell you Southeast is not safe. Is the North safe? But you are there investing billions, right? So Igbos must be intentional about empowering Igbo land, right? Our investments have to come here, right?
So Igbo simply means togetherness.
Yes.
Strength in
concept,
numbers.
That's right. The concept of togetherness.
Yes.
It reminds me of something my mom used to say when we were kids. We were a family of 7 kids, right?
Okay.
And so my mom would always tell us, y'all have to be together. Y'all have to band together. And she would always make this illustration with a broom. And she says, get a single broom, break it, you break it, and then it snaps, in just a second, right? And then he says, get the collection of single brooms, which is a broom, and try to break it, and it's impossible. And he says that's what togetherness does, that together you're stronger, but individually you're weaker.
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
So Igbo, can be traced down to the Igbo culture.
That's right.
So can you tell us about the concept of Igbo and the essence of it?
Okay, so the concept of Igbo is something that we use a lot in the business community to define the importance of coming together, banding together in business. You could call it crowdfunding. Some people would like to call it cooperative, business as well. Like I told you sometime in the past that I do not, in my mind, there's a prejudice on the cooperative thing, right? Because we've watched many adults actually form cooperatives and go take agricultural loans and end up using this monies to buy cars, build homes, and never do the things they said they were going to do. So I don't like that word cooperative. And so having done global business, I know about crowdfunding, and it's a very modern way of doing business overseas, where people come together as a crowd and fund any venture, any business or different projects, right? And so that is one thing that is lacking. Please get that audio ready. One thing that's lacking in the Igbo business community is that togetherness, that concept of Igbo. The Yorubas are doing better in that regard. The Hausas are doing better in that regard. You see the Hausas, they come together and decide on a thing and they move as a block, right? And it's actually gotten them quite far as a people. It's the same thing with Yorubas, right? If you look at, apart from the fact that I know that when they did indigenization of companies, right after, I think it was after the war, no, right after independence, it was after the war, I believe. The Igbos didn't have a lot of money to take advantage of that, and so we were left out. And Yorubas and a few houses invested more, and that's part of why a lot of the big companies that we have in Western Nigeria, a lot of the big names have more Yoruba shareholders than the Igbos. But when the hand of the tide turned, the Igbos started doing well. We still did not believe in businesses that we can run as a group of people, but we were rather doing our individual things, right? And then that brings me to a statement in business. That it's a question in business. Would you rather be a small part of something big or a big part of something small? It's a very powerful question, right?
Would you rather be a part of something big?
Would you rather be a small part of something big or a big part of something small? Now, when you are an entrepreneur that is a sole proprietor, you own a business on your own. Your business could be a 50 million business. It's a big thing, right? But you're a big part of something small. 50 million really may not be a lot when you talk about global businesses. So you're a big part of something small. But you can be a small part of a $1 trillion business, and yet your income annually is much bigger than somebody who owns 100 million business. I don't know if you get what I'm trying to say. Let me explain this to you. When Apple started many years ago, almost 40 years ago, right? There were a few people that invested in Apple computers. And so they bought maybe about 20%, right? At that time, it would be looked at as something very little, very minute. But today, Apple is a business of $1.7 trillion. That is 2-3 times the GDP of Nigeria. Just Apple, a company alone, is 2 times or 3 times the GDP of Nigeria. So somebody who invested 20% in Apple at that time today is a multi-billionaire, right? Do you get that concept, right? So what I'm trying to say in essence is that Igbos like to be a big part of something small. And as a people, we have not advanced like we should. And that's why Igbos don't own a lot of global companies. That's what the concept of Igbo does.
Okay.
Right? I don't know if that's clear to you or in business, Igbos are more individualistic when it comes to
Okay.
making money. Igbos
Oh,
are more
okay.
individual. It's me, Ichigom Limited. It's my company. I run this ship. That's an Igbo man in business.
Okay, I think that's.
But when you're
better
talking
to
about
refer to.
migration, yes, Igbos migrate and then bring their brothers and stuff. But when it comes to business,
Business.
Igbos are very individualistic. And that's why you find, go to CAC, check the statistics. You find that most Igbo businesses registered with CAC are sole proprietorships. And it's a fact that when it comes to funding, Igbos are not faring greatly. Because I told you that when it comes to funding, investors like to invest in companies that are owned by multiple people than invest in an
Why?
individual.
Why
Because
do they do that?
yes, if an individual dies, you're a sole proprietor. If I give you 50 million naira as a loan right now,
Okay.
and that person dies tomorrow, my investment is gone.
Yes.
There's
okay.
nobody I can fall back to, right? But if that company is a PLC or limited liability company that has multiple directors, I can confidently give my loan, my investment in that, complete
Because
my
you know that
investment.
something cannot happen to all of them at
Exactly.
the same time.
So if one person dies, there's somebody else to take over and run the business. So you see why Igbos are not faring in that regard. But Yorubas, if you look at Unilever, you look at some of these big names, right? Look at their shareholders. They're mostly Yorubas. Look at all the major banks in Nigeria. Look at their shareholders. They're more Yorubas and Hausas than they are Igbos, right? Because an Igbo man can say, I can run how my thing was around here. You know? And that's because of the things that
but
we've
what
been
could
through
make
as a
people
people.
to actually do that? The
Yeah,
BK.
I was going to say that really. The reason Igbos are like that is that we have seen a lot in the Nigerian family, right? We find that the Yorubas and Hausas would always collaborate and kick the Igbos aside, right? So the Igbos feel like the outsider when it comes. I want to run my business, so nobody will say anything.
Nobody will side
or nobody
join
will
me or
take
something.
will take my business. But really, we had to learn as a people, to come together as Igbos. If you don't want to do it interracially, do it within your race. Find people that are like-minded, people who have the same visions as you, and come together and put together, money. It's better that way because this way you own bigger businesses, you do more global businesses, and that way you prosper more and you make a lot more money, right? When you are an individual, you're limited to what there's a limit to what you can do. Right? But imagine now you want to run a global business and somebody says, hey, let's do a merger. We have what we call mergers and acquisitions, right? Mergers are when two big companies come together and do a project, right? You have 500 billion share capital and this other company has 450. You come together, that's almost $1 billion already. It gives you leverage. There's much more you can do. Right? So that's in the area of mergers. Then acquisitions is when a company decides to acquire another company that is already doing well, like Facebook did with WhatsApp and did with Instagram, right?
yes.
So acquisition, these companies are doing well. I find money and I acquire them. I'm not kicking out all their professionals. I'm bringing all of those professionals into my one single team. And now we're bigger body doing bigger things, right? Jewish people celebrate their billionaires. And the reason they do that is when you make one Jewish billionaire, right, he makes hundreds of other millionaires, right? So they invest within their community. They let their money work within their community, right? That is to say, when one Jewish person becomes a billionaire, he invests in institutions that will employ more people and give more people opportunities to make money. Now, he said something striking, that black billionaires are always concerned about themselves and their families and not the community, right? So how can you have so many black billionaires and you're not creating institutions? There are no institutions owned by Igbos. There are no banks owned by the Igbos in the Southeast, for example, right? There are no big institutions, no big businesses in the Southeast. There are no companies. How many companies are manufacturing in the Southeast? Now, you see a lot of these people, like a man, I won't call the brand, I wish I could, but I wouldn't call the brand, that set up a tomato factory recently, about 3 or 4 years ago. He didn't do it in the Southeast, he rather did it in the North. I understand, yes, that the North has more tomato, farms. I can understand that his raw materials are there. But really, the Igbos like to go out and do big things and not do it in the Southeast. They will tell you Southeast is not safe. Is the North safe? But you are there investing billions, right? So Igbos must be intentional about empowering Igbo land, right? Our investments have to come here, right? That's what he was saying. Why people bless their communities, bless their own people, set up banks, set up institutions, set up schools, make investments, thinking about how they can empower their own race. But black people don't usually do that. They want to come home and throw money around in ceremonies and wedding. You saw Obi Kubana at the wedding, at his mother's funeral, and all the millionaires that came around throwing money and all of that. They want to do that so that they can be worshipped and become very famous in their communities. But what are you doing to empower your own people? Igbos are not faring very well in that regard, and it's really sad, and that's why we're not doing well as a people. You will find pockets of individually wealthy Igbo people, but as a block, are we wealthy? As a block, are we better? As a state, as a region, are we better? Look at Western Nigeria. Most investments go there. Most investments go there. It's because they are deliberate about bringing investments to their region. Because when you do that, you create jobs for your people, you eliminate poverty and the side effects of poverty. That could be prostitution, that could be criminality and all of that, right? There are no jobs in the Southeast, and that's why criminality and prostitution is growing. Right?
Okay, so you said you have a vision for Southeastern Nigeria. Can you tell us about it?
My vision for the Southeast, and this is why everything I do for the past couple of years, for at least the last 6 years, has been trying to educate, the Igbo race about businesses and global businesses, right? We must be more intentional about how we do business, right? All this petty trading is not helping us. Petty traders their businesses are dying. Look at what's going on right now. Petty trading is powered by income, right, of the society. And look at the Nigerian society today. Income is stagnant. Inflation is at 28%. No Nigerian is earning enough salary. I don't care if you earn 400,000. It's not enough for you to run a family of 3, right? So the families support petty traders. And because the families have been thrown under the bus by the policies of the federal government, they are not able to support these petty traders. And petty trading is dying as a trade. As a form of livelihood, it's dying, right? And so if you want to continue to depend on petty trading as a people, then we can't go anywhere. We're going to create more poverty in Igbo land in 2024. So my vision for Igbos are to begin to think global. We're thinking too local. We almost have like a myopic vision. Our eyes are down. We're looking down. We need to look up as a people. We must think about global businesses, how we can go to other countries and invest. Look at Dangote. Dangote made wealth. What did he do? He tried to get dollars to run some of his businesses, and the central bank would always tell him there's no dollar. What did he do? He branched out. He went to Tanzania. He went to East Africa. He set up, cement factories in different regions of Africa. What that is doing for him is that he's now getting a congregation of forex from these different businesses in different countries that he's going to now use to run his Nigerian operations. Igbos are not thinking that way. Right? It's Nigeria, it's Mandela's, it's Aspanda. And so when government wakes up one day and decides to shut Aspanda down, a lot of Igbos will be thrown into poverty. Right? But you need to diversify your business, your investment. Igbos have to be intentional, come together. Okay, I want to go do a business in Tanzania. There's a business opportunity there, but all I have is 200 million, but that investment requires 1 billion. Okay, can I look in the Igbo community? Is there somebody else who has 200 billion here, 150 billion, 200 million here, 150 million here, 50 million here? Hey, y'all, let's come together and put this money together and achieve this 1 billion that we need to go and invest in this business in Tanzania.
So the concept of Igbo can be adopted at any stage
in any business. So imagine it's a mining license you're trying to get from South Africa, right? And so there's a bid. The government of South Africa throws out a bid. Igbos have to be intentional about these things. You have to think global. It's not just about Nigeria. Because in Nigeria, a lot of things are happening to Igbo people that are destroying their businesses and throwing more of us into death, into poverty. So what you need to do is look out internationally, listen for bids. So South Africa throws up a bid right now. South Africa came to Nigeria when Nigeria called threw out a bid for telecommunications. South Africans came and bidded, right, and won the contract. And today, South Africa, what's the name of the MTN? Everybody knows MTN is the biggest telecommunication company in Africa today, because they came to Nigeria. So the same way, Igbo businesses had to listen when there's a bid thrown out. Call one or two of your brothers that have money. Let's put this money together and go buy this license in South Africa. Then you go to South Africa, you buy that license, and then you make bigger businesses. Then you become global. So if anybody, government in Nigeria, in any state or federal government decides to shut down your business in Nigeria, you have something to fall back on. Igbos are not doing that, and that's what I'm trying to say. That's why today I'm talking about the concept of Igbo. We must come together. And it's so beautiful that on the concept of Igbo you can build hotels. On the concept of Igbo you can build banks. On the concept of Igbo you can build industries. On the concept of Igbo, you can do export business, you can do tech businesses, you can even do a 1 million naira business, right? You want to set up, okay, we're talking about the Young Millionaire program.
Yes.
That is running on the concept of Igbo on one side.
Yes.
Because one side, we're talking about an individual investment of 6.7. But on the other side, we're saying for those of you who don't have 6.7, come together in a group of 15, contribute 500,000 each. That's Igbo. And so you will be able to make up that amount and make the investment. At the end of the day, you split your profit. That's simply what the concept of Igbo is. And that's my vision for the South is, number one, is to begin to do something collectively as a people that will advance the region. Number two, it's not just about Nigeria. You have to think global, you have to go global, you have to invest global. There are business opportunities all over the world where Igbo people can play. Igbo people live all over the world. Right? But why are we not hearing about Igbo businesses all over the world? Because the idea is go there, set up a small, by the grace of God, I've traveled really, not to say this arrogantly, but I've traveled around the world and I've seen what Igbos are doing. It's always a small shop in South Africa. It's always a spare part market here. It's always a big supermarket there owned by an individual. Why can't we come together and play in the bigger field? Mining is global and it gives big money. And people can do that. Somebody went to Zambia and invested in the copper mines, spoke with the government and invested a very little amount in the copper mine. And today they're making so much money. These are individual white people. If white people can come to African countries and do this, Chinese people can come to African countries and do this, why can't Igbos do it? We have the skills in trade and in business. All we need to do is change our concept, make it more global, make it, more united. And that way we can advance better as a people.